It's so important for us to learn the value of centering on ourselves first. That means showing ourselves kindness first. That means prioritizing our self-care first. That means believing that we are worthy first and foremost. Because when we center ourselves, it is better for everyone around us. The best world is where we as women center ourselves first. But we are taught to do it backwards because it keeps the status quo. We're taught to put everyone else before us. And if there's anything left over, then we can have that. Oh, by the way, there's never anything left over. And that just keeps the same story going that is bad for everyone, but keeps the same sort of system perpetuated.
Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy Podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, J.N. Behringer, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. I'm J.Ann, your host, and I have on with me Lydia Knight of the She Center, who is a wonderful person, and I cannot wait for you guys to get to know her. So say hi, Lydia.
Hello. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm thrilled about the conversation we're going to create today. I feel like there's great energy happening in the world with what we're both doing, and it's fun to see it coming together.
Yes. When I reached out to you on Instagram, I was like, oh, she's never going to respond to me, but I'm going to do it anyways. And I was just so thrilled and floored that you wanted to be on our podcast because your message is so in alignment with what we are trying to put out there. So thank you for your work. But before we get into all of that, let's start with your sun, moon, and rising. And then you have some interesting stuff about your numerology that I want to hear about. So what is your sun, moon, and rising sign?
So sun is Leo, my moon is Sagittarius, and then my rising is Scorpio.
So did you feel like you ever related to any of it? Like if somebody was giving you an astrology reading, is that something that you were like, oh yes, that makes a lot of sense for me?
So I think it does in a lot of ways. It's been something that I'm recently learning more about. I tend to attract into my world a lot of people that know a lot more about it than I do. So what I've heard and the feedback that I've gotten all makes a lot of sense, almost to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, like that's just the reality. Like that's how I've already lived. And this is just lining up with what this is telling me. So yeah, it's fun to find that resonance and to just attract people into my world. I've literally had people that I didn't know, like at a business conference or whatever, and we happened to be at the same resort, come all the way across the room and be like, I have a download and a message for you. And then they'll just say all of this incredible stuff that's so applicable to what I'm doing that like they couldn't have known in any other way. This has been my experience in the world. So I'm open because I've had such cool experiences with just being open to who's showing up.
So amazing. So you mentioned to me a little bit that you were born on 8/8, which is such a cool number. And I want to hear about your experience with eights because we do love numerology here on this podcast as well.
So fun. And I'm excited to learn, but these are some things that have popped up in my world. So I learned just with someone delivering this message to me that 8/8 is Lionsgate, right? So it's supposed to be this really incredible day of like manifestation. Eights are just cool numbers, for lots of different reasons, but I've seen them show up in incredible ways. So 8/8 being the Lionsgate, I teach my clients a process that's the neuroscience of manifestation. So essentially how to manifest with your relationship with your own brain, exactly the reality that you want in your life. I did this process when it came to our dream home, and our dream home is the most unique place I've ever seen like on the planet. It's so incredibly unique. And just outside here, there is a beautiful tiled path, and there's this big sort of gate, like there's these two big rocks, and there's a lion statue sitting on either side of it. It's literally physically a lion's gate. So that's wild. And then one of the coolest things I've ever seen in the natural world in my life happened also here on the property of our dream home. But I was walking into my office and I heard this slapping sound, and the slapping sound was like getting louder and faster. And I was so confused. Like I'd never heard this sound in my life. And as I keep on approaching my office door, which has like this orange paint that's painted on the outside there, this orange snake that was the exact same color as the paint, that's why I didn't see it, jumps up in front of me. So it looks like it's flying in the air. And the slapping sound is it would land on the ground, slap its tail, and then jump and do these acrobatics in the air. And it was doing it over and over. And it was creating an 8 shape right in front of me. Literally a snake dancing, flying in an 8 shape right in front of me as I'm coming into this space that I'm in right now, which is where I work on this mission and create a better world for women. So 8s have shown up in some crazy, miraculous ways.
Yeah, that's incredible. There's so much to that whole story, like symbolism with the snake. In one of our earliest episodes, we talked about the symbols of the divine feminine, and the snake is one of the key symbols of the divine feminine. And it's just like you are doing this divine feminine work. And this orange color, oh my goodness, there's so much richness. That is such an amazing story. So
Wild,
8 is,
right?
yes, 8 is definitely very resonant for you. I love it. It's beautiful. So tell us about kind of your cultural background and upbringing, how that brought you to who you are today and how that formed you and made this unique fingerprint that you are.
So I think there's such power in our incredibly unique stories. I think that some of the darkest things that have happened to us or that we've experienced can turn into our greatest contributions in the world and some of the greatest gifts that we get to enjoy. Not that it made it okay that the bad things or hard things happen, but what it creates in how we showed up in it and our unique story is so incredibly powerful, I think, especially for women. So my personal story is I grew up in a cult within the Mormon Church. My grandmother was a cult leader. I grew up terrified every single day of my life. I was told that if I did anything wrong, every member of my family would be killed. I was told that there had been, my spine broken and needles in my eyes, that a band of Satan worshipers were chasing me, that I was in danger all the time. Like my nervous system was from like such a terrified place. Like from as early as I can remember. I was kidnapped away from my father when I was like 2. Then I went on to have a horrible abusive marriage, life-threatening eating disorder, incredible like poverty mentality. I grew up in really awful poverty. And I went from that to leaving the cult I grew up in, leaving high control religion, Mormon Church, leaving my abusive marriage, leaving the toxic, corporate world that I was part of, ending my eating disorder, and going on to found and create the She Center. We've coached over 9,000 women since 2010. I found incredibly genuine love in my life, built a top 2% woman-owned company in the world, doing work that I love. My nervous system is like happy and stable and wonderful, and now I get to share with others. Like I am living an incredible dream life that I love. And I am like the least likely person to be doing so. And I really feel like that's a true principle is it doesn't matter where we came from or what happened to us. Like we can create the life that we want. And we've helped over 9,000, women leaders to do that. So that's my story. And that's where it all came from. It really started with my own survival and what I needed to get out of all of these cages and chains that I was in.
Yeah.
And then I got to share how that works. So that's where it all came from. And it starts with us.
I want for our listeners to hear this because I don't know that I knew anything about this story, but we actually have many Mormon listeners in our audience. So I was just really shocked that you just said that. But there is a certain level of trapped feeling, regardless of religion, that you just described, that I think a lot of people are feeling right now, very trapped, bound, like there's no options. How did you work out of that trapped feeling and get past that or out of it or dissolve the cage? Like what brought you to that it's possible to believe that it's possible for me to get out of this?
Yeah. So it's wonderful if you don't have to get to this point. However, for me and for a lot of people, there's this rock bottom place where it's like either my life gets better or I don't want to do life anymore. And I got to that point where I was like, there was a day where I was just collapsed on my closet floor and just weeping. And I'm like, if this is going to be my life, I don't want to do it. And it's oftentimes in those moments, what's profound about that is that it can be these moments of surrender where we are open to really changing our story. Because that trapped feeling is we're telling ourselves the same story. We are a character in a story. We're so like how our brains work is it's so based off a story. So we're writing the same story and we are trapped in the story that we are writing. And we have this moment of surrender where we back up and we become the observer of the story. And what we talk about in our community is you become the storyteller. You're not trapped in your story anymore. You are the storyteller of your story. And when you take on that storyteller identity and you have the tools to change your story, that's what changes everything. So like my rock bottom point was when my eating disorder was just so bad. I had tried everything for years. It had just gotten worse. Like I could not have worked any harder on ending my eating disorder. I was so hopeless. And it was in that moment of collapse and surrender that it occurred to me for the first time. I wonder if the healing modality that is neuroscience based that I created for myself, that I never thought I'd share with anyone else, I thought it was just for my own survival. I wonder if that healing modality that got me out of the cult that I grew up in and allowed me to deprogram from the cult that I grew up in, I wonder if I could deprogram from my eating disorder. And in 1 week, my eating disorder was over, has been over ever since. We've helped over 1,000 women now to end their eating disorders. Like it worked so well and it wasn't by effort and it wasn't by looking to some authority. It was really about being open to changing my story. And I already had the answers. Like when people look for a good coach, please don't look for a guru. Don't look for someone who's trying to convince you they know better than you. Look for someone who is very good at helping you to find the wisdom and the answers that are already there, that they are a support for that. So it's moments like that where we become the storyteller and then we already have the answers. We oftentimes need support and community to find those.
That is so good. I have like a million questions that just popped up as you were saying these really powerful words. So, so important. Okay, so stepping back into this, when people start to take that role of the storyteller rather than living the story, there's a fight that happens from the story. Yeah. Where it says, no, 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 you can't change this story. How do you help people with that part of it? Because it's two parts. It's like, oh, I can step back, I can zoom out. But then when I go to change things, then my story gets really mad and I get all these different things coming up. So how do you work with that part?
Yeah, that's a great question because that's literally the thing that keeps people stuck in this loop of when they approach something better. It almost feels like it does feel dangerous and it feels impossible. And there's so much resistance that comes up that people retreat back because it's more familiar. And that's a big reason why so many of the principles that we teach that have been tried and true with literally thousands of people, like we know they work because they actually work, not because like some study came out and now we're thinking this might work. Like it actually works. That's why so much is neuroscience based because there's our lower brain and there's our higher brain. The lower brain cares about survival and it cares about us staying the same. And our higher brain is the one that is the storyteller that can change our story. And when people go to become the storyteller and they feel all of that fear and all that resistance, people put meaning on it because we're meaning making machines. We're storytellers, right? So we put the meaning on it of like, this feels so difficult. I don't think I can do it or I shouldn't do it. And when you understand this feels so difficult, because the lower part of my brain wants me to stay the same. Because my brain sees change, even if it's the best change in the world, that lower part of my brain sees change as dangerous. And when, as the storyteller, you can just name it and be like, this character in my story thinks that danger is the same thing as change. Once you understand where that's coming from, where you're not putting some meaning of like, maybe this means I shouldn't, where you're like, no, this means that my brain is a healthy brain and doing what it's supposed to. But what do I actually want? That's where you get momentum moving forward instead of being stuck and going in this yo-yo of trying and retreating.
So when that part comes up, what do you do that with that? Is it a process? Is it part of your process that you do something with it? Or is it that you just go, Thanks, but have a nice day. Cause I feel like a lot of people are going, thanks, but have a nice day. And then they move on, but that part is still kind of festering.
Totally. Well, people say, thanks, have a nice day intellectually, and then they still take action from their fear because you're going to do the thing that is based off of how you actually feel, not what you intellectually know. We all intellectually know how to be healthier. What we actually do is what's based off of how we feel. So the neuroscience healing modality framework that we teach, it's called the 5 Cs. So we teach this in different ways. We just had a beautiful 3-day event called Deprogram, where we literally deprogram from one of these limiting core beliefs in the process of 2.5 days and create a new story as a storyteller. So it doesn't need to take long. It's very effective. But I'll give you like the first piece of the 5 Cs because it's a good example of how we need to change fundamentally how we feel in our relationship to our brain. So the first C is chatter. So chatter is what we call all of the stuff, all of the fear-based stuff that your lower brain says. And a fun neurohack of like how our brains work is our higher brain, the storyteller, the empowered part of ourselves that has a vision for a better life. That's also the part of our brain that is in charge of speech. So it seems so simple, but it's literally life-changing. All of that chatter that's looping in our head of like, oh, well, I can't do it till it's perfect, or what if this person doesn't approve of me, or what if I fail? All of that, if you start saying it out loud, or you can hear it with your ears, like your voice is saying it, you're using your voice, your ears are hearing it. When you start saying it out loud, what it does is it wakes up the higher part of your brain, where if it's looping in your head of like, well, I simply couldn't do that because I'm not ready. And what if everyone finds out and I'm an imposter? If the chatter is saying, what if everyone finds out I'm an imposter? And I probably shouldn't do this until it's perfect. Your higher brain is now seeing it. And your higher brain is woken up because you're speaking. And your higher brain has real commentary and power to be like, that's ridiculous. It's a way to start disbelieving our fear when we do things like that, right? So that's like the first part and what we build on to give you an example of when you know how your brain works, you can work with your brain.
Yes. Okay. So what about meditation then? And I know that's not even a question, but everybody says, oh, if you want to get rid of the chatter, meditate, just be quiet. You're offering a different solution. Or do you feel like this fits into some version of like, focus on your breath, focus on your breath? Or should we scrap that and just say our thoughts out loud and be like, that's ridiculous?
This is a wonderful question. So the first thing I'll speak into this is if anyone is saying you should meditate to get rid of the chatter, they are not an experienced meditator because the chatter is not going to go away. When someone is an experienced meditator and is really getting the benefits of meditation, they're not getting rid of the chatter. They're practicing observing it. So we talk about it like the feeling of if your thoughts are like a stream, like a river, and there's a current to that river, most of the time we feel like we're standing in the middle of the river. The current is strong, we're falling over, we're all wet, we're gasping for air. And meditating is like stepping onto the shore of the river. None of the thoughts are changing. The river's still going, but you're not in the current anymore. You're just observing it. So what's really powerful about meditation is as you focus on your breath or become more mindful or whatever it is, you're practicing observing the chatter without getting involved in it. This overall strengthens your brain so you have a better relationship in your brain and you can be like, oh, not all my thoughts are true. I don't need to believe all this. I'm just observing. They're just thoughts. They're not me. Meditation helps us to really feel through experience. They are just thoughts. They are not me. The process of calling out the chatter, the 5 Cs, is now that I know that those thoughts are not me, how do I actually change my behavior? Because you can observe the chatter, but still not change your behavior. And the only thing that changes your life is if you change your actions and your identity and your emotional home.
So powerful. Okay, so the second question I have is, yes, we have chatter and we can deal with our own chatter. What about cultural chatter? Things that are a societal story and maybe we don't know which story we want to believe, or maybe we don't want to believe any of these stories, but we don't feel like we can escape them. What do we do about that?
Yes. Okay. So the concept that we talk about is first, because we're the she center, right? And part of that is coming back to your center and how a better world for women is a better world for everyone when we center women instead of patriarchy. So there are many meanings to that. But we talk about this concept of you center self and then you center your sphere and then you center your world. So it's such a beautiful question to be examining, changing the stories of the world that we're in and changing them for ourselves. So first, centering self. You do the work so it doesn't matter what story you're being given from the outside. You are creating your own story because you're the storyteller. Not a character in patriarchy story or in, colonialism or in capitalism story. No matter what the story is, you become empowered. Then you center your sphere. So you teach people how to treat you. You teach people in your world how to align with the story that you've chosen for yourself. And then from there, when we start doing that, then it turns into centering our world. Like the world story changes when our individual stories change. So it's this beautiful ripple effect, but it starts with us. And that's why it's so important for women to learn and practice to put themselves first and to not put everyone before themselves, because that's not how we change the world. You must center yourself before you center your sphere. It's so important for us to learn the value of centering on ourselves first. That means showing ourselves kindness first. That means prioritizing our self-care first. That means believing that we are worthy first and foremost. Because when we center ourselves, it is better for everyone around us. The best world is where we as women center ourselves first. But we are taught to do it backwards because it keeps the status quo. We're taught to put everyone else before us. And if there's anything left over, then we can have that. Oh, by the way, there's never anything left over. And that just keeps the same story going that is bad for everyone, but keeps the same sort of system perpetuated. So that's not what I just said, but it was kind of fleshing out some of those concepts.
Exactly. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. So let's work on that right now, because this is the core reason why the podcast even exists, right? If women knew how to be feminine, we would be talking about how to be feminine. Okay, so I've got a million kids. They all have special needs, for example, right? These are the issues that we've got. We've got special needs. We've got kids all over different ages. Everybody needs something, right? How do you not put that first? How is that possible to put self first? And what does it look like to put self first? And what does it look like to have extra?
Yeah. So you have needs too. We oftentimes have this story of like, well, everyone else needs me. You need you. You need you more than anyone. And I'll give you an example of this. If you were going in for a surgery and your surgeon was so freaked out, like their dog is sick, they were late to work, like just like they're having a bad day. They're angry, they're shaky, their nervous system's out of whack, they are totally not regulated. Would you be like, surgeon, just get the surgery done? Like, I just want the surgery. It would be like, surgeon, take care of yourself or I am going to have a really bad surgery. It's the concept of putting your oxygen mask on first. But the thing is that everything that everyone else needs, their needs will be met so much better when you prioritize centering yourself first. It's so much better for our kids to be an example of what a cared for, regulated, supported, resourced, truly loved woman is, and to be the example of that rather than, oh, as a kid, I got everything that I needed because my mother gave herself an autoimmune disorder and burned herself out.
But that's what we tout as powerful.
Not our story.
Not in our story. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I've heard many stories.
Yeah, it's totally made up. It's a completely made up story. There was a story long ago that a woman with fat rolls on her body and lots of curves was the most beautiful thing. And they carved statues of stone of women like that. And now there's a completely different story of a woman who controls herself because she's so thin and she's just skin and bones. They're opposite stories. But each time they were made up, they were the story that was most effective to keep women so miserable that they didn't rise up and create their own stories.
So it's not the sign of a strong woman that she worked 3 jobs and gave herself an autoimmune disorder to actually put food on the table and give everybody else what they needed. It doesn't have to
She
be.
has the freedom to tell that story, but it has specific outcomes. And we see that the outcomes for her life and everyone's life that she touches and outcomes for the world, the outcomes are much higher quality when she has a higher quality story.
So good. Okay, so how do we do anything? Because now it sounds like we have to write every story, right? You have the power, you have the choice of any story you want. What stories do we start with? How do we start?
Yeah. Oh, this is such a great thing to focus on and to realize that we're doing it anyway. This isn't a new task. This isn't a thing for your to-do list. This isn't when I have a free 8 hours with no interruptions, I'm going to do this. We are creating a story and reinforcing a story to ourselves every moment of our lives. And it's simply about shifting that story. You can tell yourself the old story over and over, or you can shift and create yourself a higher quality story. And you first know if you have a quality story with how you feel, because you may feel like intellectually a badge of honor, burning yourself out, taking care of everyone else. But at the end of the day, it feels hollow and you feel depleted and you feel bad. Even if you're comforting yourself with like, well, I'm doing what I must, or I'm doing what I should, your body, your heart is still giving you feedback of this is not a quality story that you're living. And so we first notice how we feel and we get used to paying attention to that. And if we feel in ways that are not serving us, not that any emotions are wrong, totally feel your emotions, but take them as feedback, then you notice like, I do not feel good. And you validate that instead of gaslighting yourself, telling yourself that you should feel a different way, just own it. Be like, I feel bad. And then you start noticing the story you're telling yourself.
Mm.
Start calling out that chatter. The chatter is saying, well, there was no time for me. The chatter is saying, well, I could have said my idea if I was 20 pounds thinner. The chatter is saying like, well, I'm going to rest as soon as my kids are in college. Like, you start noticing the stories you're telling yourself, and then you decide to change those stories.
One of the biggest stories I told myself, and I started recognizing it, is like, it's not okay to make enough money to live on. That was a big one. And then it became, I don't understand how this makes sense. Why don't I make enough money to live on? And I started to open up that conversation until it became, oh, it's okay to make enough money to live on. Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about? Or is there is there more?
And that's a beautiful example of that, right? And you had an evolution, and I want to really focus on why it started changing is number one, you noticed what story you were telling yourself, because you could have just ignored that and pushed through, but you noticed, you had the awareness of what story you were telling yourself, and then you got curious about it. What's great about curiosity is that it's very difficult to hold curiosity and judgment at the same time. When we're just in judgment of ourselves, we just keep on being the same and perpetuate that. But when we're curious, then we have the ability to change. So you got curious and notice just awareness and getting curious started evolving your story. And I would guess that it started changing and transforming the results you were creating in your life once your story changed.
Absolutely. Suddenly was like, I'm not okay with the salary. I'm just going to go find another job. And I accidentally went out and got another offer and then brought it to my current employer. Like, it was a total accident, right? I didn't go out and be like, heh, 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 I'm going to go get a better offer and then I'm going to bring it back to my boss and they're going to meet it. But it just sort of unfolded that way. And it was terrifying as it happened. But then it happened. And then my boss like just didn't have a choice at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Congratulations. And there, like, our behavior changes, the universe aligns. Like, when we tell a new story, things start aligning with that without effort and without force. It's incredible to see the power of telling ourselves a new story. One of our executive coaching clients in Rise, she accidentally doubled her salary by focusing on, we were deprogramming from people pleasing, and her life got better and better and better. And she did not expect, she already had a substantial salary, and she accidentally doubled it just because she centered herself and she
Yes.
centered not people pleasing. And then people started seeing her as a leader instead of a helper, and leaders make twice as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of stepping into that space of like, I'm a woman and that they don't see me as a leader because I'm a woman and all this stuff, she just focused on herself and then boom, they made her a leader. Interesting. Yeah, very good. And my story was like 10 years ago. So this isn't like it just happened. This was like 10 years ago. Yeah, I was selling insurance and it was a wild ride. So this worked for more than one avenue of your life, right? You said it helped you get out of the cult that you were in. Then it helped you with your eating disorder. No matter how much like setting goals, you probably set a lot of SMART goals for your eating disorder stuff or whatever it is you were doing. And then you were like, yeah, this is the year, my New Year's resolution. I'm going to make this shift. I'm going to force myself to change everything. And it didn't work for years and years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But changing the story, it took you a week.
1 week. Yeah, 1 week.
Like,
Literally.
that's crazy powerful stuff.
It's crazy powerful. And, at first I was like, well, that worked for me, which is great, but I wonder if it would work for other people. So I was a health coach and a business coach at the time, and we started creating these like focus groups with people that were struggling with the same sorts of things. And we were seeing like, well, does this work for, like, we had women 55 years of bulimia, and it worked for, like, within a matter of weeks, they were done. And we also had women where it's like, I've been really overeating for 6 months, and it also worked for them. And it worked with overeating and binge eating and bulimia and all of these other things. And then we started finding out from our clients, they're like, oh, and it really helped my OCD. Oh, and I'm off of my anxiety and depression meds because I don't need them anymore. Oh, and I've been going to my therapist for 25 years and I just like said a happy goodbye to them. Like, it's incredible to see that when we have the power to change our own story, like, what does it not apply to? Our whole world is based from the foundation of what stories we're telling ourselves.
Yes, so good. I want to shift a little bit into community. And because you said, okay, it starts with self. Well, if we work with the stories of self and now we're changing, we're different, a lot of times the people around us are like, what is happening? Or on the worst side, they're like, I hate you because you're changing. And mostly those are people who are benefiting from our people pleasing, right? Who don't like that change. So how do you handle those external things as you're changing, or as you see women changing and they see their relationships start to shift? That's a little scary. What is that? What does that look like? Do you have some stories around that?
Totally. So it's not our job to try to keep everyone in our lives.
Yeah.
It's not our job. And it's not a great job to take on because this is a clarifying process. One thing that I love that I've gotten to witness thousands of times over is when a woman has higher standards and her self-love is there, it instantly clarifies because she looks around at her world and she's like, oh, now that I love myself more, I can see who's a match to that and I can see who isn't a match to that. And it's such an empowering, clarifying process of like, these are the people that don't belong in my life anymore. And oftentimes they opt out on their own. Yay, easy. And then, like, easy as in they do it on their own, not easy like, oh, that can be hard on your heart. But
Yeah.
something that's important to understand is the people that are in our life at the level that we're at right now. It can feel sad to lose some of those people, but what we don't see is all of the people that are waiting to be in relationship with us, where we're going and with who we're becoming. And so once we meet those people and we're in alignment with those people, we look back and it's like, I'm so glad I let go of those people that chose not to come with me, because then I was accessible to the people that I really wanted to be with. And it just keeps on getting better.
I love that. I love that. What about, and I think you already kind of touched on this, but what about, is that sometimes the reason that we don't want to change the story, or we get to a point and then we go, not going to change it anymore. Plateau maybe of that. Like, what is that? Does that sometimes feed into this stagnancy that might happen is if we're on a progress and we're like, yeah, things are going well. And we come up against this external environment and go, all right, I'm going to stop this because now people are mad at me and I don't like that.
Yeah. So an important thing to remember is that that's part of the story as well. So I'll give you an example. So the woman who accidentally doubled her salary, she had a story that it's more important for me to let go of my people pleasing than it is to be liked. And she totally had the story, people will stop liking me if I'm not people pleasing anymore. And here's what actually happened. She wasn't people pleasing anymore. She was working less, doing more of the work that she loved, prioritizing her and her life. And like, I cannot think of one person that liked her less. These people respected her more. They saw her as more of a leader. They thanked her for empowering them, because think of the message of people pleasing. People pleasing is essentially saying everyone is incapable except me. I've got to do it all, because y'all are a bunch of plebes. And it's like, when we center ourselves and when we're like, I've got this and I'm not going to do your job because you've got that, we're instilling confidence in other people. So a lot of times, the stories we tell ourselves of like, well, if I did that, then so-and-so would leave me or stop loving me or not like me anymore, this person would be mad. Those are simply the stories that your brain is giving you because they will work to keep you the same. If you're so afraid of that story coming to pass, so it keeps you the same, then your lower brain did its job. but that's not actually what you want. So question those stories because most of the time it's just not accurate.
I love this persona person of the people pleaser at work, because if you do everybody's jobs, then they don't have to do their own jobs. And then you stop doing it, then there's the fear that the whole company's going to go down because they're not going to do it. So what do you tell those women? Because I know there are some of them listening.
That's great. So you look at that story and you call it that chatter, right? And the beauty about seeing the story from your higher brain is you see how ridiculous it is. Because if you're really honest with it, the chatter is saying, if I stop doing everyone's jobs, the entire company is going to be mad at me and it's all going to fall apart because I'm master of the universe and I'm holding up everything that's happening. And if I died, everyone else would. And you start seeing like, probably not.
Probably would though, right? There's some of that, but there's like at least 6 women who are like, no.
Yeah.
They'd go under without me.
You know what? Like what your brain is going to do is it's going to tell you, oh, but your story is true. But that's what your brain is telling everyone. Like your brain is always going to tell you, oh, but your story's true. Prove your story wrong. Do it. Make a backup plan. Be like, you know what? If the whole company goes down because I stopped doing Billy's job, then I'll change. I'll go back to people pleasing. Like give yourself the permission that you can try it out, see if your story is right or not. And then you can always pivot if you need to. And then you find out that that story wasn't true. And then you just don't have that fear anymore. And then you're braver next time.
Mm-hmm. Time and time again. It's a safety thing. It feels very unsafe to not do everybody else's job.
Yeah.
I just thank you for jumping in with me on that one.
So one of the scariest things I'd ever done to this point in my life, and then I got way better at doing scary things, but I was a health coach. I was like a high profile in my company. There were thousands of people that I was coaching and I had a team of 500 health coaches I was training. It was my whole identity. And I had a horrible eating disorder. So on the outside, I was like, this is how to be healthy. And then behind the scenes, I was binge eating out of control. And I was, of course, out of integrity and imposter syndrome and terrified. And at one point, I decided that it was more important to be authentic and transparent with people than to try to just keep on hiding this and try to fix it and then no one will ever know, because I didn't know if I was ever going to fix it. So there was this national call where I was going to like healthy health tips with me. And I got on that call and instead of health tips, I just told the truth. I was like, this is who you think I am. It's not. I'm out of control. I'm binge eating. I have no idea how to fix it. I've tried everything. I just want you to know, not only am I not perfect, I am like so messed up. But I want to be honest. The story that I was telling myself that I would have bet $1 million on that, oh, my story is true, is that everyone's going to leave. I'm committing career suicide. Everyone's going to be so mad. And the reality of what happened was I cried myself to sleep. And then I woke up the next morning to hundreds of messages of people that I thought these were going to be rage messages of like, how dare you? And they were actually messages of me too. I thought I was the only one. I didn't know what binge eating was. I was just trying to hide this from everyone. Everyone thinks I'm healthy. I've been doing this for 20 years. These were the messages that I was getting. And that was the motivation of knowing that I wasn't alone, that we really refined these principles so that the 5 C's could work predictably for ending eating disorders and then all of these other things. But like we do these things that feel brave, that feel like our story is true, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And then we have that as an anchor for the rest of our lives. Like within the last week, I've done very vulnerable and open things, but it's so much easier. It still takes courage, but it's like, remember that one time, Lydia, where you thought you were going to blow up your whole life, but it was actually the best thing ever when you were open and honest about who you are? Well, it worked last time. So we start building trust with ourselves. When women talk about like, well, I just don't trust myself. Well, how many opportunities have you given yourself to build trust with yourself? Trust is something that's built. It's not something where it's like, well, I'll do it as soon as I build trust with myself. You have to build trust to build trust.
Yeah. And that involves doing scary things.
Yeah,
absolutely. That is such an incredible example of you really were holding the entire company and you were like, I gotta come clean and you might hate me.
Sometimes things are meant to be blown up. Like I thought I was committing career suicide because everyone would hate me. But I actually blew up my career because it was a totally out of an integrity career. The diet industry is the worst. And getting out of that was so important. It gave me a way out of it because I could actually help people instead of just encouraging them to do the same cycle that I was stuck in. Sometimes blowing things up is the absolute best scenario.
It's that Scorpio mindset. That Scorpio rising is all about falling, the phoenix, burning up, coming out from the ashes, new stuff coming in because you let the old stuff go that really was not in integrity. Everybody gets all worried about like scorpionic themes and Pluto. And at the end of the day, what it's really pointing at is those kinds of things of you're way out of integrity here. And that's what needs to go. And not that like, we're just going to mess with you to mess with you. Let's just shake it up and see what happens.
Like it never gets easy, but it's such a great trust builder where you can look back and be like, actually, this is a really good thing. And it probably wouldn't have happened if everything was okay. It probably needed to get a little shaky for me to be like, I've got to get off this ride.
Yeah. Was that part of your 1 week to get rid of your eating disorder, or was that way before that?
Yeah. So how it happened was I like came clean with this is who I am, found out I wasn't alone and there were all of these other people that were struggling. I still didn't have an answer of how to end it, but now I knew it wasn't just me. And there's a
Yeah.
principle that is useful. There's a higher law to this, but will oftentimes do more for other people than ourselves. So I had on my mind that this wasn't just about me finding a solution for myself. Like I literally had hundreds of people that were like, we need a solution. And so I just worked harder, faster, stronger. It just got worse and worse. And then it was that moment of collapse where I really wanted to know, like, okay, I'm going to really try to use these principles I created, see if those work. And then I had all of these people that I could test it with as well. So it worked in like a week for myself, but then it was like seeing all of these hundreds of people just end the thing that has plagued them for sometimes decades. So it's incredible to see how the universe sort of lines these things up. And honestly, I don't think it could have happened the other way. I don't think it could have happened of like, I'm finding the solution. And now that I have a solution, now I'll be honest and open and now I'll help other people. There was something for my journey that was really important about being honest and real before I had an answer and before I was ready and before I had like a happy ending. Like
Yeah.
when I was just like, I don't know the solution and I'm going to be honest. That was really an important thing for me to learn.
That reminds me of every single hopeful coach that I have ever worked with that says, I can't start my coaching business until I already have the answer in place, that I've already, look at my life. It is already amazing. And you should have one like this too. That whole concept of you have to have proven it in yourself before. Like, I don't know the answer and I'm figuring it out. Actually, I think it attracts a lot of people because they're in the same boat. They're actually in the same boat of, I don't know. And it feels so unattainable of like, this person's got it all figured out. That doesn't feel as relatable. I just find that to be very interesting that you had to have that moment. So
Yeah.
cool.
I think it's a great thing to bring up. An important contrast to look at is it's really important to have a coach and to be a coach who's continuously growing. But I don't suggest having a coach that continues to fail at the same problem you're dealing with, right? Like have a coach that's a couple steps ahead of you. For friendship and for accountability and for community, it's great to be working on things together. But one thing I want to highlight is, especially in the diet industry, there's so much like, well, let's just do another diet together. And as soon as we support each other, then maybe this will be the one that can become toxic as well. So be sure that you have a coach that keeps on growing forward, rather than one that's authentic, but still is keeping you in a toxic cycle that doesn't work. If you're looking for leadership, have someone that is growing past where you're at, but still authentic and real and growing.
Also growing. I love it. Thank you for that grounding message. So back to community. We're doing the personal thing. Now we're going out to community. We talked about work. What about personal relationships that may fall off, things that may explode, things that might not go as we had hoped, but actually feels more authentic than the reason why we're in that relationship?
Yeah.
How do you help women sort of navigate that? Like, as much as it's like, yes, it's a grieving process and it's hard, it's also very rewarding and empowering. How have you seen this? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, like thousands of times. Yeah, like this is because we're all in relationship in some way, whether that's a partnership, a romantic relationship. But relationships are so important to who we are as people. So it can feel very courageous to do things that shake up that relationship. And this goes back to you center yourself first. Because when you're in integrity with centering yourself, what happens is that It simply clarifies and highlights what's happening in your relationships. Like, the reason that I left my abusive marriage was not because I was like, this is a bad situation, I should get out. It's because I kept learning how to love myself until there was this breaking point where there is no way I can love myself this much and still be in this relationship. So the beautiful thing is that you become the person that is strong enough to leave and make the transition when it's the right time, right? It's like you've grown to the point where now it's like, fly, you've got your wings. So I'll give you a few different examples. There was one woman that we worked with that just as she grew in her standards and love for herself, she realized, like, I do not want to be in this marriage. This does not make sense for me. I want to be out of this marriage. She had all these stories of why that would be so hard for her kids and all of this. She was in our community. So, I was coaching her from week to week. And the beautiful thing is that she was leaving this marriage from the person that she'd become, where she was really centering herself. And afterward, her ex-husband and both of her teenage kids all separately came to her and thanked her for how beautifully she navigated this and how things are so much better. And thank you for taking these steps. It was what's best for us is best for everyone. Center yourself first. I also worked with another woman who was like, you know what? My marriage is not working. It's not the relationship for me. So she just lived in her strength and her standards. And because she was no longer being who she needed to be in a bad marriage and being the person that she was going to be once she left, then her husband totally changed and now they have a great marriage.
That is so great. Yes.
So be delighted with how people show up when you get better.
That's why getting attached to specific outcomes is not going to benefit anybody. Is when we tell the story like, this is how my story is supposed to go, and we sort of write the future, we're always wrong. And it doesn't go that way. And then we get mad that it gets stuck in that same spot and we keep looping and looping and looping. But sometimes the answer is not to get stuck to the ending, but to get stuck to who you are and really come back to that sense of self, like you've been saying over and over again. I'm so glad that you keep saying this over and over again because it requires and needs reiteration.
Yeah, it's like those layers of when we hear a message and it's like, oh, I get it. Oh, now I really get it. Oh, now I actually know what it means. It's so important. That's one reason why community is so important, because it's reinforcing these same messages as we see other people learn them, as we're reminded of it. It's really, really powerful to be in community where we're all growing together.
And when you say community, you're talking about people in your physical space, or are you also talking about digital communities?
I'm talking about both. The beautiful thing about digital community is that we get to connect with people who we can be so authentic and real with that we would have never met if it weren't for, like, so we have, our community is all over the world, right? So I'm thinking of one of my favorite clients and she lives in Japan. And then another one of these favorite clients and she lives in like Minnesota, right? And like, people connect and it's like, you are my people. One thing we hear over and over in our community is, I am more authentic and real here than I am anywhere in my in-person communities. So I think finding community where you can find your people, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, it's about the community, not so much how we're meeting. And there's nothing like in-person community. And there are like ways that we can grow together that are, advantages to both ways. So we have an app coming out where we encourage people to all gather from around the world and to learn and to grow and to be in community virtually, but then also create in-person communities. We call them she circles, where we come together and we're in person as well. So I think both are important. There are advantages to both, but it's about having community that's the most important.
Yeah, I think that's really important to touch on because I think some people are wondering, where's my village, right? They find the emotional and mental and deep, authentic connection with the online communities. And then in person, it feels like a desert in a lot of ways because we live very separate lives in these very close proximity spaces. So how do you, aside from the She Center, which is a really wonderful tool, what are some basic tools to like build community, even as we're working on all of those other pieces that we're talking about, whether it's not necessarily like romantic relationships, friendships, people who are in your space. How do you, because that in-person community is about physical support, right? And being able to deal with the elderly, being able to work with kids, having somebody everywhere. Do you have any tools to say like, hey, this is how you make friends? Because I think this is a problem a lot of women are right now.
Totally. Okay, so I'll tell you the story that I've been telling myself for years is, for me personally, it's so hard to make friends. It's so hard to find your people in real life. And then I got to the reality of, yeah, it's really hard for people to find me when I work from home and don't leave my house and no one sees me.
It's true.
Right? It's like, well, I've got to own that part of the story as well. But it just, it's like I validated my story because look, I haven't found my in-person community. So I have been building the most beautiful in-person community and it's just blossomed quite quickly because I really looked at the story I was telling and I saw it was ridiculous to think that my best friends would like come to my house as strangers and knock on my door and be like, you want to be friends? Unlikely, right? So I would say if you want to really find friendships, we're going to go back to the principle. You must first center yourself. That means taking time to do what you love. That means taking time away from taking care of other people or being responsible for everything. So for me, I love dancing. I wanted to just dance more for years and I never had time and there was no dance opportunity or whatever. I found out in my town, like, it's not a big town. There are dance parties all the time. I had no idea until I actually looked. Pretty much every weekend, I just go out and I dance. And guess what? There are other people there that are dancing and now my friends. And now I can go out just like I go by myself to these dance parties now because I go out and on the dance floor and I like know all these people because they're my friends. So when you center yourself, you start doing what you love. And when you start doing what you love, not like an outcome of I'm going to go and try to find where my people are, go and be who your people are. Go and do what you love. And then you start finding other people that do what you love and creating community. Well, like you kind of have to expose yourself to people. And that's a truth that I had to come to myself.
I think that is a very good point. And I think that's a big question that people go, how do I find my community? Well, you have to leave your house. Step one, leave your house.
Yep.
Because they're out there.
They really are. They're looking for the same thing.
Yeah.
Like we talk about, like, we're all wondering, how do we make friends? Well, if we're all wondering how to make friends, it's not that there aren't other people out there that are our people. It's that we need to be able to connect. And we do that through doing the things that we do when we focus on centering ourselves and loving ourselves and giving ourselves time to do what we enjoy.
So good. So true. So good. Do tell us more about the app and what does it do and how do they find it?
Yes. Okay. So I am in the middle of learning this lesson personally. So this is really important for me. So thank you. So we've coached over 9,000 people since 2010. And our original theory was these principles are so powerful. So let's teach them to leaders. And then those leaders are going to become better leaders and we're going to change the world that way, which was a fine theory. Here's what actually
And leaders, you mean like what kind of leaders are you talking about?
Yep. So like we've coached leaders, executives at Adobe and Disney and National Geographic. We've done leadership training for the US Army. So going out and really talking about better leadership with these neuroscience-backed principles that are so impactful for changing our stories, for changing our results, for really making the world a better place, communication. And so our original theory was this is going to make the biggest change. And what we found is that for those individual leaders' lives and the people that they lead, yes, it has made incredible changes. And the world change that we want to make, like the better world for women, is not going to be from the executive point of view and is not going to be from the invest tens of thousands in leadership coaching, which is totally amazing and worth it, but not accessible to everyone. We were really seeing that the change to make a better world for women is going to come from community and from more matriarchal principles like giving economies and being open and really sharing. So this is my edge of where I'm growing, of figuring this out. But the thing that I'm doing that feels very vulnerable, that our team is doing, this is, I have an incredible team. This is not just me. That we're taking the principles that we used to just teach leaders and executives for tens of thousands, and we've put them all on an app, and we are releasing the app for free for every woman in the world. And we are encouraging people to come and learn and grow together in community in a way that is totally accessible, where we have women supporting women, where we're in a giving economy, where like I am giving away my life's work because I believe that it will make a better world faster than any way that we've tried to just give this to top leaders or those that can afford that level of coaching. And so we want to make it accessible for everyone. And what we encourage is for people to come and learn and share and to start going out of their house and building in-person communities where it's like book club, but for the most powerful neuroscience-backed principles to transform your life, where it's like, let's come together and really learn how to change our stories, but do it in community and then grow that community. And this is how we believe will change the world. And I don't know how it's going to, like, I've supported it with just my own money. This is my gift to the world. And we're really hoping that we can do it in a way where it is a giving economy. We say, like, if 1 out of 10 women on there were to give 1% of the last money of theirs that they gave a man for absolutely nothing in return, then we will be totally fine. But we're doing it before. See, this is the lesson I have to keep learning. We're doing it before we know exactly how it's all going to work, but it feels right to give it away, and it feels right to invite every woman who wants a better world for women. So that's what the app is.
So it's going to be by donation, and you can donate if you want to at
Yeah,
some
so it's going to
point.
be free and open to everyone. And women that can support it, that means that it can stay free for everyone who can't. And we're really encouraging everyone, whether you are giving to support women or not, like, come and benefit. And I think that's much better than the capitalistic model of there has to be some paywall, there has to be some gatekeeping. We're trying something that's very new and very outside of capitalism, and I believe in it. And we're going to see how it works for real, because the story is probably better than I could even write it.
Totally. Exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about. What is the name of the app?
Yes. So it's the She Center app. So it's the same,
Okay.
the shecenter.com is our website. That's our mission. So it's the She Center app. It's very close to coming out. It'll probably be out by the time that people are listening. If not, just stay tuned, check back. But we're getting really close. It's been in development for maybe a year and a half. Our director of strategy, Kels Quinn, is phenomenal. So it's like, it's a woman owned, it's a woman designed, it is completely woman supported from the ground up. We've built it with absolutely zero oligarchy influence.
Wow. Broligarchy. I've never heard that phrase before. I should have heard it, but that's
Well,
wonderful.
now you know. I think it's very descriptive.
Yes, it is. So good. What is one thing that you would like everyone to leave off with? What little piece of wisdom? We've talked about stories, we've talked about programming, we've talked about all kinds of stuff. But what's something that you really just are feeling like this needs to be said and it hasn't been said?
Yeah, that your desires are there for a reason. And before your head hits the pillow tonight, take a deep breath, take a real moment to center yourself and ask yourself, what do you desire? What do you want? That's such an important question. Every woman should be asking themselves that question. What do I want? And then as soon as you know what your desire is, know that anything that comes up of why you can't or why you shouldn't or you're not ready yet, know that each one of those is a story that you have the power to change.
That's so important. So good. I have chills. Thank you so much, Lydia, for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you for sharing your life's work with the world. Incredible, scary, clearly, but also incredibly wonderful. And yeah, just thank you.
Thank you for this beautiful discussion. I'm so glad that we could join our voices in the world. This is how we do it. Like, this is how we build the world that is best for everyone and how we make the world a better place. It's like our voices and our stories. So thank you for uplifting my voice. And I'm so glad that we could join our voices together today.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Well, everyone, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.